that a space always enchanted all human beings from prehistoric times. In fact, you will see that from all the civilizations, whether it's a Egyptian or the Hindu civilization or even the Abrahamic civilization, the Roman civilization, Greek, all had always a narrative and the liking for the space because it was always a mystery to them. And this mystery, they have been, people tried to give reasoning to them, and when they could not give a reasoning, they brought God in this one, and that is what the all spiritualism and space got linked. But one of the most important things is space as a science. It has a very important connotation, and one is that I consider it's the most inspiring thing. In fact, one of the dynamics of the innovation comes from the space technology of the country. In fact, you'll see that all the countries which has invested in the space technology, it might not have been a very tangible benefits, but the benefits have come in a very indirect way. It's like, that the US investing in space and sending people to moon finally ended the Cold War race. And today's this technologies, today we are in the computer world. The first 4-bit computer was used in the Apollo program. From that only the computer revolution started. Microcomputer, mini computer, and all sorts of computers, and today's mobile phone. Or you see that the ubiquitous the digital cameras. They have also been the byproduct of the space technology. It was initially developed these CMOS cameras in JPL or the space imaging, and today it is a part of everybody's mobile. And another aspect, that's in 1452, when Port Crusade was lost by the Christians and the Saladin won, and he blocked this Silk Road, and from the Turkey, and then and it led to the discovery of America by Columbus. Imagine, had not the Columbus discovered America, the history would have been fully different. This is exactly so that the space, today we are on Earth, and the science is progressing in a breakneck speed. What was there in today's advanced science, in another 100 years, it will be a primitive science. You don't know how people will progress, and people will probably travel in interstellar travel, and people will start colonizing the outer space and the other planets and all. You don't know how it will happen and all. But had it not the Columbus taken the step to find out the route to India by circumnavigating Earth, in fact, he actually quite discouraged by the Christian higher ups, because they believed in the Bible it is written that the earth is flat. So anybody trying to reason that one can go to India by moving in the westward direction because the earth is round or the sphere, it was blasphemous. And today he fought over this blasphemy, and today history is changed. So similarly, in future, we the Hindu civilization or the Indian civilization should not be left out. We don't know; it can happen in another 1,000 years. But if we do not invest today in that technology, we will be missing out our civilization for maybe after 1,000 years. We don't know this thing. So we must invest. Further, it's an inspiration to the country for innovation and it is also an inspiration to our young minds to bring up our economy and our technology and our science. It may be have a very the financial gains and losses in this business may be insignificant to compare to GDP, but it propels our imagination to bring a better technology, better industry, and better economy. In fact, that today that India is progressing, probably it has a trigger in our space program, which became inspiration that you can stay in the country without fleeing the country and develop it by staying. It is very nice to advise from staying in other countries and other, but staying in the country without blaming the system, without blaming the processes, and working with the system and building things. It's an example, which is can be imitated by others to bring up. So it is possible that you can succeed in India, and ISRO has demonstrated, and that I think that is where the main crux of the success of India's space program. The that landing on moon is not a cakewalk. It demonstrates the country's prowess in technology, sending an unmanned vehicle to all the way to moon and land it and drive a small vehicle there. And it's an enormous technological feat, and which is really going to bolster our self-confidence, our confidence in ourselves and our own country. And it will, and all said and done, the people who are the spacefaring nation, they get a special space in international relation and diplomacy. It's not that the amount of technology, it is that your prowess in space technology brings you a special prestige and a special respect in international diplomacy. I myself have experienced it, and those who are in the process of diplomacy, they know it. See, let's say a space failures are common. It can happen for no fault of yours or maybe a fault of, because it's a very risky business and you are working on a very harsh environment and you are doing a technology which has not been proven earlier. So Chandrayaan 2 failure, though we can console ourselves that okay, failures is part of business. No self-respecting space scientist will take it, that failures are only part of business. They want to succeed. And they want to demonstrate to the country that yes, we can do. And the Chandrayaan 3 is the right step in that direction. That, okay, we missed it last time, but we will be successful. And though it is fraught with risk, but a space technology, all the space scientists go with a complete hope that they will succeed. Because if we do not have a belief that we are going to succeed, we will never be able to do this. So we will be able to overcome the failures. So I must say that this is in that way is a very important that we missed one step and but we'll get up and start dancing again in the space technology. That is the main motto of this. And if you look at it, as far as the technology is concerned, we are not taking that big array of sensors we sent in the orbiter. The orbiter is working. It will last for another 5 to 6 years. Its expected time was 7 years, and we need not repeat those instruments. And we have understood why it had failed. Probably to the best of our knowledge, people have understood it is failed, and we have made the corrections. So what we are sending, instead of sending the full orbiter, the orbiter had a major, it was carrying all the fuels needed to take it to the moon. So only that propulsion system with a only a small set of antennas and the transceiver systems for connecting to the lander and sending back the messages, photographs back to Earth. So it has only this rudimentary instrumentation. So this propulsion system. On top of propulsion system is the lander. They say, I guess that the last time we made it one hurried introduction of fifth engine. Probably it was more introduced as a last minute one, and anything if you do in the last minute job without a proper analysis can lead to some issues. So probably this is the issue happened, if I understand the ISRO's viewpoint. So they have dropped the fifth engine. Normally all the landers, they have a single engine, and there are small thrusters to control its attitude. So it has to be horizontal, and the flame or the rocket thrust has to go vertical or the local. So that is what is job. So ISRO's original plan, in place of one powerful engine, because we were not having that powerful solid liquid engine that time, so we put 4 engines. In the 4 corners, the thrusters were there, heavy duty thrusters. This problem is that when a 4 thrusters you control, see, the higher the thrust, the less finery with which you can control. The smaller the thrust, the smaller the nozzle, you can control with a much better finery. So the satellites have a small thrusters, but they can control a very minute amount. So small deviations it can correct. But when you have a bigger 4 thrusters, because you didn't have the requisite single thruster of this power, what is required, so we put a 4 thrusters, and but then there was a last moment some thought, probably the 4 thrusters are not enough. We have to add one more thruster. So last time, and if you put a one more thruster, needs a more fuel. So the fuel has probably got adjusted. That is the reasoning I get there. And the ISRO has corrected this time. They are sending in the lander 300 kg extra fuel. So I guess the last time, and they dropped the 5th engine, and the 4 engines in the corner is a more sensible. It is to be corrected, and because we don't have the higher capacities engine, it could have been actually better to have a single engine, but the ISRO have studied and analyzed and they tested the 4 engines is they can control it with the requisite accuracy needed to land on the moon. So that is what they have done. So the one on which they studied probably almost a decade, they are following that technology now. So I guess this will lead to a better chance of success. The Vikram lander, instead of a 5 engine, it has a 4 engines. That's all. And it has a more fuel. It has a 300 kg fuel, more fuel. And its communication to Earth is the same mechanism. Earlier, Chandrayaan 2, it was planned through orbiter. Now the propulsion module, it will replace the orbiter, but it will orbit the moon and taking the data and communicate to Earth. So this is one. So this is the only major difference. And other the vehicle, that's a Pragan rover, is the same what was done that time. It is also same 6 wheel. The mass is same. Instruments are same, so there is no difference. Only difference, last time we failed to succeed, and this time we are committed to succeed of reaching there. And it has a rover. And this lander and rover will can work only when the sunlight is there. When they, there's a moon, you have a 14 days sun and 14 days night. The 14 days sun, the temperature goes very high, almost plus 100 to 140 degrees centigrade. So we are going to the southern pole, that the temperature will be comparatively lower. It will be around 100 degrees centigrade. And the night time, it will be very cold. It's a minus 140 degrees centigrade. Now at this cold temperature, the electronics and the structures has a remote chance of surviving. So they have planned it of the initially they will land on the first day of the lunar day, and we'll do all the experiments for the 14 days. And all the programs are limited to on lunar study with lander and the rover Pragyan. It is only for 14 days, and we do not expect it to survive the lunar night temperature. Both all the electronics are all good. But if they survive, we can always do after another 14 days. But it is all a matter of chance and the amount of engineering which has gone. And I must say that a Chinese lander actually survived for more than 6 months. And it could revive itself up every lunar day, and they could do the measurement. I hope that the ISRO has kept a modest ambition, but I know, knowing ISRO, internally they must have prepared for the worst situations, and I'll be the more than happy if it revives after the 14 days lunar night and start working. It will be the great achievement and feat to ISRO. This South Pole, has not been actually not much. It as I told, because the sunlight is low, so energy comes low. So people have not investigated. We are the first people, and that last April there was another Japanese lander was there in private, which failed, which crashed there. So I don't. So this place we are going to investigate, but our investigation will be mainly limited to all the solar bombardment, how it is converting the the oxygen in the silicon, because all the stones are made of silica, it's a silicon dioxide or the sand, or the different forms of silicate compounds. So we have an abundance of oxygen and silicon in the whole of universe. And how this alpha particle bombardment of the solar rays, it actually unlocks the oxygen and the hydro HO and maybe the water. So this probably they would like to see in the real case, and also the amount of bombardment on the lunar surface. Because we have done certain amount of measurements in Chandrayaan 2 orbiter about the presence of moon water, but the genesis of water, there is a lot of arguments. That people say that through asteroids the water has come and got deposited in the deep lunar soil, and that is why the water is there, and in polar region there in abundance, that has been so. but in also that both MQ and MIP showed that there is an abundance of HO molecules and H2O on the surface. So people have understood that this probably is this water is originating by bombardment of alpha particles from the solar rays, solar wind, and they from that this the oxygen is getting separated and the HO ions and the H2 is formed. It may be very small layer, and some of the places are cold. It can get converted to solidification, and over the ages it might have become a dirty ice. So this is what one of the big investigation, because it's important to see that say in future if you want to have a interstellar missions from Earth gravity, you need a more energy. But if you were launching the interstellar missions from moon, you will need lesser amount of energy because the gravitational force is 1/6. So in future, the moon may become the stopgap place for the interstellar missions, where we'll be able to, the technology, the way evolving, tomorrow robots may be manufacturing, mining in moon, and they can assemble a rocket. And it need not be very heavy then. Then if we have to send it from Earth, it will be very heavy to Mars. But if you send it from moon, it need not be very heavy. It may come 1/6 of the size of Mars. That is the advantage to having a lunar. And tomorrow, today we need oxygen for breathing. But there are organisms, that they do not need oxygen for breathing. They have other ways to convert their energy sources. Who knows, tomorrow we may also evolve or become some other animal or some other metamorphosis we will have. We may not need. There may be an artificial human being with all the capabilities, but they don't need oxygen, which is all the intelligence of a human being to explore, conquer, or anything. So this is what is also possible. And there are also many debates nowadays, they say even the life in human being or the earth may be somebody's simulation. Who knows? Otherwise, why it will be so nicely defined and organized the life? Because nature always plays a dice, but with life, it has followed a very definitive pattern. And it looks like, this all of us are one of the very sophisticated computer to derive resources and energy from the environment and execute a job and thought process and having consciousness. If you look at the other way around, probably we may build another set of robots or another humanoids, who will have this better consciousness, better capability and travel, and who may not need an oxygen to travel. So this sort of thing can happen. We can engineer the species or the humanoid in the way the environment we want to conquer accordingly. And they will still remain Indian, even if they do not breathe oxygen. But this is a very, it looks fantasy. But if I look at my life, from younger days, I have seen the big telephones, black, yellow, and all. Today we have a palm top. The revolution has gone to something drastically which you could not even predict in my childhood and the college days. So there is a possibility to go to any extent. I think that my personal reading is that the fifth engine introduction as a last moment, in fact, many of us objected to it. You see, if you introduce something in the last moment, and you see that all the software, all the algorithm, and all the process schedules have to undergo a number of reviews. And these reviews are best done by the people who do it. I can assemble, having a national committee and bringing people all over the world, but they may give you a broad guideline, but the people involved in it, they have to ingest and digest the ideas. And this could not happen, and that led to certain amount of software the failure, and a certain amount of, that's a exigency management, because you can only implement what you can imagine. If you don't imagine a failure case, you don't implement a correction for it. And to imagine a thing, problems with an instrument, you have to live with it for a long time. There is a certain amount of gestation period of ideas where you will understand and make the corrections. You have to think, because there is no moon on earth to experiment. So you have to think, imagine, and implement all possible error cases. And we miss that error, so particular error. And probably I feel that what ISRO would have understood, that they fifth launch fifth thruster, the central thruster was a erroneous move, which they have removed it. And probably the last time there is a fuel was in shortage, so there is a less maneuverability was there in control system. So today they have put a 300 kg extra fuel. So they have taken these two correction measures, and other measures are maybe in the software and better review, because a failure, teaches you many things which are not taught otherwise. So we have understood from the failure, and whatever to the best of our knowledge, what we could imbibe any knowledge from this failure, they have been implemented. But that end of the day, still space technology is a playing of a dice with all your knowledge, all your everything. And best of the people can also fail, and can fail frequently. You see, the Japanese lander could not land, but they have the excellent robotics on Earth. The lander, even on a 5 kilometer height, it construed, it has reached, but it was already, it has away from moon by 5 kilometers. It simply crashed. So this can happen. With the best of your knowledge, things can go wrong, but we hope for the best. The Chandrayaan 2 lander had a three sensor. One is the laser altimeter and the velocity sensor, and the radar altimeter. See, the laser altimeter, for orientations is there, because it's like a torch. If I put it in vertically, I can find out the vertical height. But if my hand is tilted, I'll see the wall. I'll get the distance. But the radar will always give you the absolute vertical height. So these systems has worked. They have behaved properly, but for some reason or other, my guess is that the fuel might have got exhausted, and it had a free fall, and the things went out of the control, because it was landing properly, and suddenly there was the vehicle started toppling. So my guess is that it may not be control system failure. It may be a fuel was exhausted. And probably that is the reason now we are carrying 300 kg extra fuel. So the Chandrayaan 3, my perspective, all space scientists are optimistic. So I am too. And and I personally feel it will be success. Because nobody tries for failure. I know the ISRO system, ISRO setup, ISRO commitment. They must have put. I may not be there as a part of ISRO now, but knowing ISRO, they would have put the best of the efforts. And I fervently hope it succeeds. But as I told you, there can be still failure, and countries should be blessed for this. That if it fails, let us not curse ISRO scientists. They have put their best in it. I am not putting an alibi anything there, because we'll try again till we succeed. I'll give you an example. That today PSLV has more than 50 flights. But the initial 3 PSLV launches were failure. Anybody would have cried and left everything, no? You have seen there are 2 consecutive failures of the Japanese H2. The system designer he started weeping in public. So this happens. But and today PSLV is a cakewalk. Every launch is successful. Because in space technology, we do not fail. We take an experience, learn from it, correct ourselves. But my personal hunch is it will be successful. Aditya L1 is already there. It is I think very shortly to be launched, maybe this year. So this will be our experience in the L1, the Lagrangian point, sending almost a million kilometer away, having an instrument to measure it. And the solar radiation will be very high. The instruments have to survive in those conditions.
Earth science is incredibly important to
So the solar wind study, it will give an enormous information, and it will aid many of the physicists in the country together. I will tell you that when we blame today, the physics has gone so much that you need data. You may collaborate with NASA or anybody else of Indian physicists, you feel great, but you will get a second-grade data which has already been consumed by them, and you are getting a second-hand data. Because everybody is selfish, they want to get the first credit from the data. So you have a second chance of getting data. So we'll have a first-hand chance of getting data on the solar physics, which is an enormous potential. And I am looking forward to the NISA, the NASA ISRO, in which, though the whole satellite is built by us, and the launcher is by us, orbit maintenance is by us, and we have built S-band synthetic aperture radar. ISRO has built, and JPL has built the L-band synthetic aperture radar, and our S-band radar has a double the hardware and more complex one. And but for some reason and other, ISRO or the people, they do not put much about NISR. But if you go to NASA sites, they put everything of the NISR and all their participants. Nobody from India is there. I am not claiming everybody should do that, and India should have done it. So it is in mind, then just because the N has come before I, so it is basically NASA idea. It is not true, because personally I have put an enormous effort to build this system, the electronics, and from system design to this. And I know the strength of the system, and I know the India's contribution, but the Indians, from their training or culture or by habit, whenever they join collaboration, they don't brag. Unlike others, they will go with all drum beaters all around. So Indians do not brag, but ISRO's contribution in NISR is enormous, and it will give an very important data to the global ecological studies and the disaster management and the crop and forestry studies. That every 12 days it will cover the earth at quite a modest resolution of 10 meters resolution, and that data is absolutely free, and it will lead to an enormous amount of innovation in application of remote sensing technology, not just India or USA, it is all over the globe. That this is a initiative, the first initiative by India to make it that data absolutely free and without any hidden chains behind this commitment. It will be available. It will be available. If you don't get from ISRO site, you will get it from NASA sites, and it will be available to all over the globe. I think this is an important mission. What I am looking forward to this in 2024. And Gaganyaan mission is something will be pride of our country. But then I don't think it will can get launched. Probably this year, the one unmanned version may go. And then I expect that 2024, we may see the first launch of a first human Indian astronaut on an Indian platform. That is my hope. And knowing ISRO's commitment and the country's commitment, I am sure it will be successful. ISRO has tested its rudimentary technologies. Now they have to combine them and test it probably 1 or 2, 3 human flight sorties and then launch human being. And please understand that sending a human being needs a much more stringent reliability. You cannot send a human being and bring him dead. And that is absolute no. So this is where there is a slight word of caution. ISRO may put wherever they find there is a certain lack of reliability, they will correct it, and these dates may shift here and there. But obviously, one may question, if the human space flight has happened when I was born to today, after 60 years, we are doing it. But it's a question of the priority of the country and the amount of investment. And the whole of ISRO, the amount of investment is actually around $1 billion. And that is a typical investment to one of the 19 centers of NASA. So what ISRO has done today with the modest contribution by the government and we have no complaint about it. We had to go through the difficult economic situation. We made a best use of it and gave the best return to the country. And that should be the credit of the country. And there are certain technologies. It's not much important whether you are late. Question is whether you have achieved it or not. And the Mangalyaan mission should be viewed. If we achieve it, it will be another feather in the country's cap, and it will be a huge inspiration for India's economy to grow by $10 trillion by 2030. So there are two parts of the question. You see, the whole of Thar Desert and Kutch, which is if you put it solar panels, they can provide all the energies what India needs. That is, in fact, India is having a very significant share of the solar. And if you put the solar panels in only a minuscule part of Sahara Desert, you can light the whole world. It is this much energy is coming. And if anything can be done on ground, why do it in space? There may be very, very enormous technology related thing. We can achieve it, but if it is can be done on ground, why do it in space? That is my question. I remember, that Thakur Ramakrishna Dev, went to Benares, and then one Hatha Yogi came and said, "You see, I can walk over the Ganges and cross other side." And he demonstrated going other side and coming back. Then Ramakrishna Dev asked, "How long did you take practice to get this yoga sadhana?" The Hatha Yogi told that he took 12 years of sadhana to get this capability. Then Thakur Ramakrishna asked, how much does it cost to go across this river and come back? He says 100. He says in 12 years you have learned only 1 of thing. So I must say that when we attempt technology without deriding, the simplest way of investment which will give you the earliest and the better returns, you must do that. Because money is not free, it comes from taxpayers' money. That is one. But there are many new ideas which can be implemented when you have enough money. But today we have whatever economy we have, we are in a quite prosperous economy. But we need to concentrate on conserving and a better utilization of. Second part is, yes, China had a head start in the space. The reason is that there is two things China has done, which we have also done. China, they liberalized the economic policies in 90s, in early 80s, under Deng Xiaoping. And before that, India and China's per capita GDP was same. And we followed it by 1 decade later by 1990s, early 1990s. So we have also started growing, but 1 decade later by economic policies and the bureaucratic and abolition of red tapeism and the one window policies and all those we implemented in the P.V. Narasimha Rao's time, and which was followed up by all the succeeding prime ministers, some less, some more, but all have moved to forward direction. And in 2000, China did another remarkable thing. That is, they have invested and triggered huge innovation culture. And which I must say, sadly, we missed it from in our academic setup, in our industrial setup, and we have not realized that when we build economy for the present day, the existing technology is fine. But if you want to plan for future, you have to build economic technology of the future, and that is where the innovations are needed. But I am happy to say, in the COVID period, and though all over the world, they lost their economy, they lost their enthusiasm for life, for good reason because of the government, they triggered a huge push on innovation. And it is bringing up the result. And even I am sitting, I could have never imagined as a government servant coming to the market and getting investment from the public and convincing people and bringing a technology of a future. Like my company's motto is, we'll bring radars which has not been built before. Because we don't want to repeat the same thing what other fellows have did for 30 years. We want to build something. This is exactly the motto. There is a huge impetus on the innovation has come. But unfortunately, all this government initiative on innovation and all, they got delayed by 1.5 decades. So Chinese did a head start and they have gone up. But they are doing better. They have put a human being in space. Or 20 years before, they have a space stations. They have a huge rockets. They can have that they compete with the SpaceX also. They are aiming and for that. They have built huge telescopes like a 500-meter telescopes and everything. But then I must say that let us not get frustrated because our neighbor has progressed. In fact, we take that as an inspiration and move ahead. And in fact, this is the motto the country had taken. And you see that many of the manufacturing field, we have become more attractive place than the China. And I am sure if we keep up this motto, tomorrow will surpass our neighbors. And the best feeling of happiness and is when you perform, you live slightly better life than your neighbor, and that is the day will be of our satisfaction.
That's a